You probably think the stories behind major criminal organizations start in smoky back rooms, maybe forgotten corners.
Right, the usual tropes.
But what if one of the most, well, significant gangs in the Americas had its surprising start inside prison walls and driven by political ideals, no less?
Quite a twist.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're taking a deep dive into the Ñetas,
Mm-hmm.
a gang that, started in the Puerto Rican prison system and has since spread its influence way beyond that.
Yeah, across the mainland U.S.,
Yeah,
even into Spain.
exactly.
And we've compiled quite a bit of information about them.
Right.
So our mission really is to understand the history, the structure, their activities, and just how far their reach goes, going beyond just the headlines.
Okay, so let's go right to the source then, the very beginning.
The genesis.
Our sources tell us the Ñetas were founded in 1979,
1979.
but not in some dark alley.
Oh,
Inside the Rio Piedra State Penitentiary.
Oso Blanco Prison in Puerto Rico.
That's the one.
And what's really fascinating here is, like, the initial reason they formed.
Right. It wasn't what you'd expect.
No. The founder, Carlos Torres Iriarte, known as La Sombra, the Shadow.
The shadow. Okay.
His first goal and the group's wasn't crime as we think of it now. It was mutual protection,
Protection for whom?
specifically for pro-independence political prisoners.
Ah, okay. So political roots.
Deep political roots initially.
Yeah.
Improving conditions, defending against abuses from guards, other inmates.
So what starts as this sort of fight for rights inside prison
Yeah.
surprisingly lays the groundwork for this, well, huge criminal enterprise later on.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, how that shared identity, even one born from, adversity,
Mm-hmm.
can bind people together, for
Mhm.
better or, well, often for worse.
Right. So these individuals advocating for Puerto Rican independence, they're locked up together.
Exactly. And their first focus was just day-to-day survival, better conditions, self-defense.
They must have faced opposition pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't long. Their main rivals, right from the start, were another prison gang
Who were they?
called Grupo 27. Group 27, sometimes called Insectos,
Insects. Ouch.
and in turn, Grupo 27 called the Ñetas Gusanos.
Which means herms.
Wow. So clearly no love lost there. It paints a picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Super tense, dangerous environment inside.
Absolutely. And the Ñetas, well, they didn't stay the underdogs for long.
How so?
By the early 80s, sources say they were pretty much the dominant gang inside Oso Blanco.
But that kind of rise to power usually comes at a cost.
A significant cost, yeah. A really crucial turning point was the assassination of the founder, Carlos Torres Iriarte, La Sombra.
When did that happen?
March 1981. Our info indicates he was shot and stabbed to death by members of Grupo 27, their rivals.
Okay, the rivals took him out?
Well, yes, but there's more. Disturbingly, there are allegations, whispers, of involvement by corrupt authorities.
Why would authorities get involved? Possibly because he was strongly opposed to drug trafficking inside the prison. He was disrupting someone's business.
Ah, the drug angle. So
Okay.
this created a power vacuum.
Exactly. And conflict over getting into the drug trade. It led to this period of intense retaliation and a real shift in the gang's priorities.
And here's where it gets really interesting. It wasn't just external enemies.
No, that's a key point.
The sources point to betrayal from within the Ñetas.
Right. Some of Iriarte's own lieutenants, his own guys,
What did they want?
they reportedly wanted in on the drug trade inside the prisons. It was profitable, obviously.
The very thing he opposed.
The very thing. So this pivot, it just highlights that classic theme in organized crime, doesn't it?
Yeah, profit over principles.
The lure of money often trumps whatever initial ideals there were. It's like pragmatic survival or greed, reshaping the whole purpose.
So after Iriarte's death, what happened?
Well, the Ñetas retaliated violently.
How violent?
They rioted, took control of whole prison blocks, even the pharmacy,
The pharmacy. Oh my.
to steal narcotics, drugs.
Okay. And what about Grupo 27?
In a pretty brutal act of revenge, they murdered the leader of G27, a guy known as Minota.
Minota. So tit for tat, but escalating.
Definitely escalating. It's just a stark illustration, really, of how quickly those initial motives can get swamped when power and the chance for big money comes into play.
And this violence, this shift, it fueled their growth.
It seems so. By mid-1984, so just a few years later, they'd expanded rapidly
Across Puerto Rico.
across 7 major prison facilities in Puerto Rico. Yeah.
So as they got more powerful inside,
Mhm.
they started to formalize things, like get organized.
They did. And they use that growing strength, that collective power, to pressure the prison admin for better conditions.
So still some echo of the original goal.
Some echo, yeah. And interestingly, there's also info suggesting they took a stance against certain types of offenders,
Like who?
like sexual offenders, pedophiles, abusers, claimed to denounce and punish them, even kick them out, banish them.
Okay. Let's shift to their structure then. How did they organize themselves?
Well, the sources describe a pretty defined hierarchy within each chapter, anyway.
What kind of roles are we talking?
You've got, like, a president, vice president, treasurer,
Yeah.
a disciplinarian.
But disciplinarian sounds ominous.
Yeah, likely enforcing the rules. And a coordinator responsible for setting up monthly meetings.
Almost like a legit organization's structure.
Almost. Just with very different objectives.
How are leaders chosen?
That's quite significant, actually.
Yeah.
Leadership positions are apparently determined by gang-wide elections within each chapter.
Elections. Does
Yeah.
that suggest some kind of internal democracy?
Well, it's a question, isn't it? Is it genuine empowerment or just a way to maintain control, make it look legitimate from the inside?
Hard to say.
Regardless, it points to a certain level of organization, a way to manage authority.
In getting in, is it easy?
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
There's a probationary period for new prospects
Okay.
before they're formally blessed in, and that happens at an annual ceremony.
When's that?
March 30th, the anniversary of Iriarte's assassination.
Ah, symbolic. And the
Yeah.
way they talk to each other.
That's really telling, yeah. They use terms like hermanitos and
The
hermanitas.
little brothers and sisters.
Exactly. Creates that strong sense of family, of loyalty, even if it is within a criminal group.
So numbers, how big are we talking?
It's estimated around 13,000 members total.
13,000. That's substantial.
It is. The breakdown is roughly 7,000 in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And importantly, those captors operate exclusively inside the prisons there.
So 7,000 inside Puerto Rican prisons. And the rest?
About 5,000 in the United States.
5,000 spread across the U.S. Whereabouts mainly?
Their U.S. presence is quite widespread, actually. Sources say 36 cities, 9 states.
Wow. Mostly where?
Primarily the Northeast seems to be the hotspot. Connecticut, Florida's in there too.
Mhm.
Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island. Those are listed as most active.
That geographical spread, it really shows how they've managed to adapt, set up shop in very different places.
Absolutely. Adaptability seems key.
Okay, what about their ideology? We touched on the political roots, but what about now?
Well, Robert Walker from gangsorus.com, he offered an interesting take.
Yeah.
Said the Ñetas use the facade of a cultural organization.
Facade.
Yeah. And that they see themselves as, quote, oppressed people unwilling to be governed by the United States.
So still clinging to that narrative.
It seems like it. While they claim those political roots, their actions now are, well, overwhelmingly criminal. So is the political thing just a convenient cover story?
It does tie back neatly to those origins, the pro-independence prisoners.
Right. They reportedly identify with the Barriquio Popular Army, their independence philosophy.
But that initial political stance seems almost overshadowed now by the crime.
I think that's fair to say. Deeply intertwined, maybe, but definitely overshadowed.
And their symbols, colors.
Red, white, and blue.
The colors of...
Puerto Rico, the national colors.
Right, so a constant visual reminder of that claimed ideology, even while they're, running drugs.
Exactly. Which brings us neatly to their main source of income.
Drug trafficking.
Yep. Main income comes from retail distribution. A whole range of stuff.
Like what?
Powdered crack cocaine, heroin, marijuana. Those are the big ones.
Anything else?
To a lesser extent, yeah. LSD, MDMA, meth, PCP, synthetics too.
So a diverse drug portfolio.
Pretty diverse. And given that scope, it's no surprise they've racked up a pretty long list of rivals.
Before we get to rivals, what other crimes are they involved in besides drugs?
Oh, it's a broad spectrum. Assault, auto theft, burglary, drive-by shootings, extortion, home invasion.
Okay, a lot of violent stuff.
Yeah, money laundering, robbery, weapons and explosives trafficking, witness intimidation. It's a full-service criminal enterprise, basically.
Which inevitably leads to conflict.
Exactly. That often leads to serious conflict.
So rivals, like any big organization in these fields, they've got enemies.
A complex network, yeah. Often volatile. It really varies depending on the territory they're in.
But some consistent ones.
Some known adversaries include the United Blood Nation.
The Bloods? Okay.
Crips, 20 Levov, Dominican Power, Dominicans Don't Play, MS-13.
MS-13, that's a big one.
Los Solitos, Grupo 27, their original prison rivals,
She's
remember?
still around.
Apparently so, in some form of rivalry. And the Latin Kings.
That is a long and pretty formidable list. Suggests conflict is frequent.
Widespread confrontations. Yeah, you don't operate at that level without bumping heads.
Okay, let's look at their expansion again, beyond Puerto Rico.
Right. We mentioned the U.S. presence. Sources confirm a really substantial footprint in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and upstate New York, too.
Numbers there.
Estimates suggest as many as 6,000 members just on the Northeast coast alone.
6,000. Wow. But their reach goes even further, right? You mentioned Spain.
Across the Atlantic, yeah. The spread to Spain is particularly interesting
Why is that?
because it's reportedly linked to deportations. Latin American immigrants with criminal records being deported from the U.S.
Ah, so they're essentially exporting the gang, or the gang members.
It suggests a kind of pipeline, yeah.
Yeah.
Bringing experience, established networks, maybe contributing to their growth in Europe.
So there's a confirmed presence in Spain? That's fascinating.
It is. And interestingly, the membership there is reportedly mostly Ecuadorian,
Not Puerto Rican.
predominantly Ecuadorian, according to the sources, and their main rivals over there.
Let me guess. Latin Kings.
You got it, Latin Kings. So it seems they've not only expanded geographically, but also kind of transplanted some of their existing beefs.
Okay, to really get a sense of their impact, the sources list specific incidents, right? Law enforcement actions.
Yeah, several examples, both U.S. and Spain, really illustrate the tangible consequences.
Give us one.
Okay, Joana Pimentel. No, La Madrina,
The Godmother.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Head of the New York City chapters. Convicted back in 2001.
For what?
Ordering a murder, got a life sentence. Shows the level of violence right at the top sometimes.
Definitely. What else?
We've got the arrest of 7 leaders on Long Island, NY, 2003, for murdering MS-13 members.
Okay, direct conflict with MS-13.
And then life sentences handed down in Freeport, NY, 2010, for members who killed Giovanni Aguilar.
Who was he?
Tragic case. They mistakenly thought he was MS-13. Wrong guy.
Oh, man. Lethal consequences of these rivalries and just errors.
Exactly. And their deep involvement in drug trafficking, that's clear too.
How so?
Well, 2010, an indictment of Ñetas and Bloods members in Chelsea, Massachusetts. Drug and firearm charges.
Working with the Bloods there. Interesting.
And a big heroin ring busted in Camden, New Jersey, 2012. Led by Ñetas members.
Results.
Numerous convictions, seized a lot of heroin. Same year, Perth Amboy, New Jersey, another drug network linked to the Ñetas, racketeering charges.
Our ICO charges. That's serious.
Very serious. Targets organized crime specifically.
What about Spain? Any examples there?
Yeah, 2014. A big brawl in Madrid.
Mm-hmm.
Ñetas versus the Trinitarios.
Trinitarios, another rival gang.
Right. Resulted in injuries, multiple arrests. Shows the conflict travels.
And back in the U.S., Long Island seems to pop up again.
It does. 2014 sentencing of Jason J. Live Cabral for the 2004 murders of Latin Kings members. So these conflicts can simmer and have consequences years later.
Wow. Any major hits against the leadership?
Yes, actually. And perhaps the most impactful, disruption-wise.
What was that?
Between 2016 and 2019, a series of indictments, convictions. 50 members in Puerto Rico.
50. On what charges?
Ready charges again.
Yeah.
And this included the supreme leader of the Ñetas.
The very top guy.
The very top. Shows law enforcement is continually trying to dismantle them right back where they started.
Okay, so as we start to wrap this deep dive up,
Yeah.
it's pretty clear the Ñetas have gone through this huge and frankly concerning transformation.
Remarkable, isn't it? From that prison self-defense group with a political angle
Right.
to this significant transnational criminal organization impacting so many different places.
It's a really stark contrast, isn't it? You still see those traces, the symbol.
Lingering bits of ideology, yeah. The
Yeah.
connection to Puerto Rican nationalism, the colors.
Right alongside their main focus now, which is, let's be honest, drug trafficking and a whole range of violent crime.
It's quite the mix.
So this leaves you, the listener, with a pretty significant question to mull over. How do organizations like the Ñetas, ones that start inside prison walls, how do they manage to adapt, to maintain influence across such different places, different societies?
And what did that tell us?
Yeah, what profound insights does this offer about the dynamics of organized crime itself and the kinds of environments where it can, take root and just thrive?
It's definitely complex, a multifaceted picture.
With origins that might genuinely surprise you.